The average freelance creative overpays the IRS by about $4,600 a year. Not because they cheated wrong, because they didn't claim enough. That number comes from cross-referencing IRS data on Schedule C filers with average deduction rates by income bracket. Freelancers in the $40,000 and $80,000 range consistently claim fewer deductions than they're legally entitled to. Not because the rules are complicated, but because no one told them what counts. This video is about those blank lines. Some of them are obvious. Some of them will make you feel like you've been doing your taxes with your eyes closed for years. And one of them, the one most freelancers skip entirely, is probably worth more than everything else on this list combined. We'll get to that one. But first, let's establish exactly how much this costs you when you get it wrong. Here's something most tax content glosses over. When you're on staff, your employer pays half your Social Security and Medicare taxes. That's 7.65% of your salary, paid by them, invisible to you. When you freelance, you pay both halves, the full 15.3%. That's called self-employment tax, and it applies before federal income tax even enters the conversation. So a freelancer making $70,000 nets less take-home than a salaried employee at $70,000. Meaningfully less unless they use every deduction available to reduce that taxable base. This is why deductions hit differently when you're freelance. Every dollar you legitimately deduct doesn't just reduce income tax, it reduces self-employment tax too. Depending on your tax bracket and state, a single dollar of missed deduction costs you somewhere between 28 and 40 cents. Scale that across $12,000 in commonly missed deductions, which is a realistic number for a mid-career freelance creative, and you're looking at $3,400 to $4,800 in real money per year. That's not a rounding error. That's a month of rent, or your entire emergency fund contribution for the year. Now let's look at where that $12,000 hides. Start with the obvious ones, because obvious doesn't mean people are actually doing them correctly. Home office. The IRS simplified method lets you deduct $5 per square foot, up to 300 square feet. So a maximum of $1,500, no receipts required. Takes 5 minutes. Most freelancers skip it because they think the regular and exclusive use rule means they can't claim a space that doubles as a guest room. They're right about the rule. But if you have a desk in a corner that's genuinely dedicated to work, that corner's square footage counts. Measure it. The regular method, calculating actual home expenses proportionally, often yields more. But the simplified method has zero audit risk and takes one calculation. For most people starting out, it's the right call. Software and subscriptions. Every subscription you use for work is deductible. Adobe Creative Cloud, Figma, Notion, your project management tool, your invoicing software. If you're a writer, your Grammarly subscription. If you're a photographer, your gallery delivery platform. Most freelancers claim one or two of these. They have 12. Add them up. Seriously, go to your credit card statement right now and count them. Most creatives find $800 to $2,400 in annual software spend they've been only partially claiming. Equipment, camera bodies, lenses, external hard drives, monitors, drawing tablets, microphones. 100% deductible if used for work. And under Section 179, you can deduct the full cost in the year of purchase instead of depreciating it over several years. For a $2,000 camera, that's the difference between a $2,000 deduction this year and a $400 deduction this year. The timing matters. The deductions in Tier 1 are in every tax guide. Here's where people actually leave money behind. Meals, and yes, coffee. Business meals are 50% deductible. That includes the coffee you bought during a client meeting, the lunch where you talked through a project scope, the dinner at a conference. You need documentation, who you met with, what you discussed, the business purpose. A note in your phone right after work's fine. Most freelancers document zero of these. They assume it's too small to matter. Here's the math. If you have 2 client meetings a week with $15 in food or coffee, that's $1,560 a year in expenses you're incurring anyway. At 50% deductibility, $780 in deductions. At a 32% effective rate including SE tax, that's about $250 saved. Not transformative. But it's also just a habit. Professional development. Books, courses, conference tickets. The masterclass you bought to study how a filmmaker structures narrative. If it's directly related to your freelance work, it's deductible. The IRS standard is whether the education maintains or improves skills required in your current work, not whether you learned something new in a field you're considering entering. Buy the course. Keep the receipt. Write one sentence about why it applies to your work, your phone and internet. You can deduct the business use percentage of both. Most freelancers either claim 0% because they're not sure, or claim 100% because it seems easier. The defensible number is whatever percentage you actually use for work. For most full-time freelancers, 50–80% is reasonable and supportable. On a $1,200 annual phone bill, that's $600 to $960 in deductions you might be leaving blank. Here it is, the one I mentioned at the top. It's not a hack. It's not obscure. It's in the tax code in plain language. And a significant share of freelancers, particularly those without a tax professional, have never used it. The Qualified Business Income Deduction. Section 199A. If you're a freelancer operating as a sole proprietor, which most are, you may be eligible to deduct up to 20% of your net self-employment income. Not from revenue, from your taxable income calculation. This is an above-the-line deduction that reduces your adjusted gross income. Let's do the math on a real example. Freelancer, $65,000 in net self-employment income. No employees. Files as sole proprietor. QBI deduction, 20% x $65,000 equals $13,000 off their taxable income. At a 22% federal rate plus SE tax impact, that $13,000 deduction is worth roughly $3,000, $3,900 in actual tax savings. For a lot of freelancers,